it's Renee with Delaney Jane Cards, and today I have a project for you featuring the Joy Clair Designs A Little Wine digital set. You can see here that I had printed it out on some Nina paper, and then I put a piece of the Gina K Masking Magic over it and ran it through my printer again so I could get masks, and then I trimmed them all out off screen. So everything is masked here, and I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending. Now this is a longer video for me. I've been kind of reducing the length of my videos lately, but this one has quite a bit of coloring in it, and this background is super fun, and there's some things I really wanted to show you, so I left them in. So here I had originally masked everything, and then while I was ink blending, I realized you can see through a glass. So I needed to unmask the glass. So I basically just where the major part of the cup is, I did that on the martini glass, and then the little wine glass that the cat's holding. And I am starting with this yellow in the center, and here I was like, well, I better do this glass before I get too far. So I did cut the glass part of the where the wine goes, the cup part of this. I cut that off and then stuck it back down and then continued on my merry way. But I went yellow, and then I went out to orange, and so how this happened is I was trying to make a card for this, and I said to my friend, if a cat and a mouse and a dog were drinking wine, what color would the background be? I mean, that sounds like it's the start of a joke, but it wasn't. I was really, when do you see something like that? Only a crafty friend will send you a message like that says, like, hey, if these animals that don't drink wine were drinking wine, what color would the background be? So I decided the background would be a variant of colors that go from yellow to purple. And I wanted it to be this really cool, you'll see as we get going here. So I'm pulling in the purple, and I hadn't die cut this out at all yet. I'm still using my whole sheet of Nina 80-pound cardstock so that I can, maneuver it and hang on to it and I don't get fingerprints anywhere. But I'm using a pretty light hand, but I'm getting, I guess, full coverage, but a light coverage of that color. I wanted the background to have this nice, beautiful gradient. And what you're seeing here is the masks do grab more ink than the paper, so you see it a little more heavy on the actual animals, but that's because they're masks. So then I took this stencil, and this stencil is fantastic, but it made me think that, like, if I was one of this cat or this mouse or the dog, this might be what the background looked like. It might be all wonky and feel like it's moving, and I just felt like this was perfect for this. So I laid it on top of the ink blended background, and then I blended over the same colors. But because I'm layering them, you'll get a darker pattern, and I kind of like bled the coral into the purple so that it kind of overlapped a little bit more. Because it works, well, stencils kind of work like a mask. So where there's the solid plastic diamonds, they're kind of diamonds, that's gonna mask, and you'll see the color that I first ink blended. See here? And because I did the masking and I cut it where the glass would be clear, well, mostly where the glass would be clear, you see here, you can see that pattern underneath behind the stencil there, or where the mask wasn't. You can see the pattern from the background where the mask wasn't, and it just looks more, I don't know, realistic. If this is not even close to realistic, but it looks like it's supposed to be like that. And I will show you how I cleaned up the edges, like on the glass that the dog is holding. There's a lot of glass part of this that my mask covered, but you would have been able to see through it. So here I am coloring the mouse, and I'm using some warm grays. I did slow down my coloring. I used to speed everything up really fast. And recently I decided that I don't like to watch coloring that fast, so I don't want to put my videos out like that. So on top of having this second angle, which I like to call my color cam, because I always turn this one on when I'm coloring so you can get right up close to the coloring and see what the marker is doing and see how the inks blend on the paper. I decided to slow down the coloring. I know it makes my videos a little bit longer, but I hope that they're more enjoyable. So my mouse is colored. He is a very neutral color because there is a lot of background, a lot of background going on here. The ink blending and the stenciling and all of the bubbles and all of the things, the carrying on that's going on. The cat, he needed to be like an orange tabby. Now I colored him in a recent video. I colored him orange, and it was a different color combination, but I colored him orange with like black stripes. This time he's colored with kind of a deep orange shadow, and he gets brighter, kind of matching that background that's there. And so this reminds me of that scene in Dumbo where, you know, they all get drunk and they see the pink elephants and the elephants on parade. And I just can't even imagine what's going on in this cat's mind. He just looks like he is lost, and he is staring at a line of pink elephants or something off in the distance. So I thought this background was absolutely perfect. And you can do this with any stencil. Lay your color variant down first, mask the area basically with your stencil, and go back over it, and you can get this really neat effect. Stencils offer so much for backgrounds, and I am a huge lover of pattern paper, but sometimes you just need to get techniquey and do something with the stencil. It makes card making fun, switching it up. So I'm coloring him so that he's got those deeper, the deep YR27 is his shadow, but I will pull in some much brighter oranges so that he really turns into an orange cat. He kind of reminds me of Garfield, like, not Garfield, but like maybe one of his relatives. But he also reminds me of my cat that I used to have. He was my favorite cat on the planet, and his name was Little. He didn't have any other name besides Little. When he was born, he was in a litter of 3, and I just always called them Little because they were tiny, and it never left. He just kept his name Little, and he was my very favorite cat in the history of ever. He got out a few Octobers ago, and somebody in my neighborhood accidentally ran him over. I miss him very, very much, but he was kind of my soul animal. You know, you can have a soulmate. He was my soulmate in a cat. He would, if I shut the door, he would yell "Mama" underneath the door, and he needed to be up in my personal space as much as possible. I don't think he realized he was a cat. So I think that's why I gravitate toward coloring cats orange all the time. Although our current cat, he's black. I don't think I've really ever colored a black cat. I might have to try it out because he is my current favorite cat. You've probably heard him in some of my videos. He's probably been in this voiceover already in the background, meowing. His name is Onyx, and he's pretty fantastic. But anyway, yes, this cat reminds me of my cat Little. I feel like this would have been him hanging out, watching the party, maybe having had a little bit too much of the nip, and maybe that is catnip tea in their cups. I'm not sure. So here I'm just kind of finishing up the orange. You can see how it went from that really deep shadowed orange to a much more bright orange by the addition of those lower numbered YR markers. The 0 family, you know, the 02, 04, 06, 07, 09, whatever, you know, those ones are much brighter in tone than like the YR27 that I used for the dull shadows. Here I'm just using my current favorite for pink, the RV42, and then I thought, well, I'd add a little bit of orange to his paws because they seemed a little too pink. I did want the tip of his tail to be white, but it made it too gray. So then I tried to push that back a little bit with the colorless blender. In the end, I think it's fine. And then I gave him green eyes. I just used the very tip of the marker and went right around those little pupils and gave him green eyes. Now for this dog, if you see the dog and the mouse and the cat, they're all drawn a little bit different. They could be used for all different things. And what's fun about the digital images is you can resize them, move them. I moved everything around in my software and kind of positioned them in front and behind, and made sure that you could see like the cat's paw on the other side of the glass that the mouse is holding, because it's clear, you would see his paw through there. And anyway, they're all drawn a little bit different, and I feel like that lends itself to this kind of having too much to drink kind of a scene, because everything would look a little funny. But for the dog, I'm also bringing in another set of neutrals here. The mouse is pretty neutral, the dog is pretty neutral, the cat's orange, he blends in. The only color that's really going to really pop off of here is when I use the green. I used it on the cat's eyes, and I will use it in one more spot here. But I'm just using the E40s for this dog. It's just a very neutral brown. I feel like sometimes they look a little warm toned, like reddish toned, which is fine because we have the reds in the background. You can get a very neutral look with them, and all of this that is going on in the background, I needed to really make my main characters pretty neutral, or it would have been just so much to look at and take in. So here I'm just blending this out, and a lot of times as something like this, a lot of times I don't even go down with my lightest color, first of all, because I know that I have so far to go to my darkest color. A lot of times I'll start in the middle of the range, start putting color down where I know there'll be a shadow, because, I mean, it's just a lot of work. I love to color, but at a larger space, it's a lot of work sometimes. Like on this back leg here, the E44 is going to be my lightest color on that back leg because it's kind of in the shadow, and I'm blending this out. You'll also notice that my Copic collection consists of classic Copics, sketch Copics, and Chow Copics. If it was a color that I could find at a good price, it didn't matter to me what kind of marker it was. They all pretty much color the same. They all have the same ink. The only real difference is the classic markers, the square ones. They don't have the super brush or the whatever it is, and I do like that brush tip. It provides a lot of movement, and it works a little bit differently. So usually if I'm coloring something that I want to use a traditional Copic on, if I want to do flicking or whatever, I make sure I pick a similar color that I have in a sketch or a chow. So for this glass, you can see through the outside glass part. So I picked some Copic markers that were very similar to the background. This RV42 is so similar to this coral tone. Once I have it all kind of blended in, it will really look like you can see through it. But in the meantime, I just kind of blended it in. In the end, you really can't tell that I didn't stencil through there. It just looks cohesive, and it works out fine. For the wine, I decided to go with purple. So this is the VO4 here, and I'm going to fill it all the way in. It's like splashing, and I felt like the dog was filling up the cat's cup. And then the VO4 is also the purple that I used to blend in the bottom of this cup here, so it looks like you can see at least reflection of what's going on in the background. So to make this round, I need to add shading. Purples are sometimes hard for me to get that. I've been pulling in like a fluorescent violet more and more, but I didn't here. I just used the VO9, which is a really deep color. There's a lot of color variation between 04 and 09, where you can actually put 15 in between here to blend this out. The purples are just funny. Yellows are kind of funny too, in that there isn't a lot of variation in color among the yellows, but you can get really good dimension by adding other colors to your color gradient. Blue violets to a yellow, an orange or yellow red. You can add an earth tone. All sorts of things like that will add dimension. But for the purples, you kind of almost have to stay inside the purple family, or it leans one way or another. I haven't really found anything that shades purple really, really well, but I'm sure if I just worked at it a little bit, I could find something that I loved. So here I'm reinforcing the green. Then I pulled out this Tim Holtz Metallics paper here. This purple is perfect for this. It's perfect. It is like that same tone as the VO4. And I trimmed it up, and then I kind of framed off my panel with a small border of this purple. And I had die cut this panel with a stitched edge rectangle, just a simple Simon Says stamp stitched rectangle. Put that on there, framed it up, and then I'm going to frame it up with a piece of black as well, so that that purple really stands out. And I thought that it was so much fun. I don't do one layer cards very often. I know I just like layered this, but basically there's nothing popped up. This is one layer card to me. So then I added some shimmer to all the bubbles because, well, if this was the background, I would believe the bubbles would all be shimmery. I feel like that's the situation. And then I added some glimmer and shimmer to the glass and all of the things that would be in the glass because, well, once I started adding the shimmer, I could not stop. So then I added it to the cup, and you see I went right over the cat's hand because that would be behind the glass. And I was like, what else could I do? Well, then I decided that I needed some white gel pen, and I left this part in here because I wanted to show you what happened with this martini glass. So one thing about white gel pen is, well, it does amazing things for coloring. You can add all sorts of details. You can make things shiny and add reflection and just, cute cartoon lines, and you can do all sorts of stuff with a white gel pen. But it has some enemies. One of the enemies is that sparkle pen. You can actually rub it right off with a sparkle pen. See, I got it in the wrong place, so I kind of used that glittery sparkle pen to just erase some of it. Another enemy is glossy accents, and I do end up going over this with glossy accents, but before I got that far, I decided to ground my images. I just used a warm gray Copic marker, a light one, to put in a little bit of a shadow here. I wanted to make sure that, although this appears to be a really drunken scene, they have to be sitting on something. So I decided to kind of ground them just a little bit. And then I put in some glossy accents to highlight all of the glass that's in here. And this took a little bit. I did do the bubbles. I have it in this fine tip applicator. Up until recently, I hadn't refilled this bottle forever. This stuff lasts a long time. I use it quite a bit. In this fine tip applicator, I get, a really nice coverage. It's not a real thick layer, unlike, if you have it in the bottle itself. So I've had this glossy accents for a very long time, but up until recently, this is the first time I refilled it in a very, very, very long time. So it's nice and ooey and gooey and flowing really well. So I did do this larger one here, and you can see how I kind of filled that in, made sure that there's no dips or bubbles. I didn't really make sure too great because, well, it's a handmade card, and ain't nobody got time for all that. I mean, I tried, but I didn't obsess over it. And I was trying to decide what I was going to do about all this white gel pen detail that I put in here, because a lot of times it will dissolve under the glossy accents. And I was like, well, we're just going to go for it. If it dissolves, it dissolves. You can always wait until it's dry, and you can actually add white gel pen details over top. But because glossy accents is glossy, it kind of does what you would do with the pen anyway. It adds the shine and the texture. And then I went over his eyes because his eyes are fantastic. He just looks like he's had such a day. So here I went back over with the gel pen because I did erase the gel pen that I had put on there with the glossy accents. It dissolved when it dried. So always be mindful of that. You can move things around with the glitter pen, and if you need to go back, you can wait until it's dry and you can go back over it. So for the inside of the card, which I have been finishing all the insides of my cards lately, I just took the stencil and the same brush that I had used, and I just wiped off the ink that was still on the stencil onto the inside of the card. It's easy enough to write over. It looks really cool, and I didn't have to do anything else. I can, just write a message in there and it's fine. So I adhered this to my card base, and then I made sure that everything was, going the right way, trimmed it up just a little bit to make sure that it was all nice and even. So that is my card for today. These images by Joy Clair are super fun. You can resize them and layer them, and you can do anything basically you can do with a traditional clear stamp and even some extras. So I appreciate you stopping by, and as I always say, give cards generously. Bye!